Hi. I got a email from a student who had some questions about the first question on the worksheet. So I'm going to go through this first question here. All right. This is also a really good question to ask about because it's very similar to the question in the formative, the quiz basically, which just changes the numbers around. So this is a really good question to ask. And let's take a look. So when it says probability of A is zero point 0.3 right here, what that means is that everything in A is 0.3. So the strategy that I've been showing is that I put a 0.3 up above to show that this amount and this amount need to add up to 0.3. Maybe I should take a step back and just talk about how if your information is given as decimals, it's the same thing as a percent, right? So this would be 30%, which if you wanted to think about that, you could write 30% instead of 0.3. I'm fine with decimals, but that just means the total in the whole Venn diagram is 1. Rather than 100%. So just a quick note there that everything should add up to 1 if you're using decimals. So that means, anyway, M and N need to add up to 0.3. M and N need to add up to 0.3. And then I'm going to skip over this piece of information for a second, and I'm going to go and look at this piece of information. That says the intersection of A and B is 0.1. So intersection, again, think about it as two streets, right? We have White Bear and Minnehaha, and this is the intersection of the two streets. It's where the two streets overlap, right? And so where does the circle of A and the circle of B overlap? It overlaps right there. So what that means is that this middle part is 0.1. All right, so the way that I am able to know that this is a 0.2 here is because both parts need to add up to 0.3, right? Everything in A adds up to 0.3. Well, if we know the middle is 0.1, then it must be 0.2 because 0.2 and 0.1 add up to 0.3. All right, so that was the main question that the student was asking, but I'll go through the rest of this question. I got no problem doing that for you. So let's look at this A union B, right? That says not the overlap, but everything. So everything in A, everything in B, the overlap included also. And so what this tells me is that if everything inside of this needs to add up to 6, well, I have 0.2 and 0.1, that's 3. How much more do we need to get to 0.6? We need 0.3 to get to 0.6. Also, it tells me what Q is because Q is everything that's not in A or B. So A union B, 0.6, that's everything that's in the circles. Everything that's not in the circles is whatever's left over to get you to 1. So it must be 0.4. And so you could think about it as 1 minus 0.6. The whole minus the two circles is equal to 0.4. So that gives you all the people or things or percentages that are outside of the two circles. Okay, so that should answer your question pretty easily, but we can look at B prime also. What is the probability of B prime? So remember, the prime means everything that's not in B. So if this is B right here, then everything that's not in B would be the 0.2 and the 0.4, and so we would get 0.6. All right, I hope this gives you a little bit more instruction on how to do Venn diagrams. These questions can be kind of hard because there's not really like a formula to follow for every question. It's all kind of logic, so you have to think through it, and every question's a little different. So yeah, they take a lot of practice, and keep the questions coming.